Hello, pre-calculus scholars. We're going to do a quick review lesson today to make sure we are ready to finish up our unit on conics. So basically this week is going to be review, hyperbolas, being able to identify the 4 different types. Then we'll review the following week on Monday, and then you will have either a quiz or test. I'll probably do it on block day, so that way it's a little bit easier to get stuff done and you have more time. So my friends, let's go through and let's review the 3 conic sections that you had to know: circles, parabolas, and ellipses. We're going to learn their different forms. Need to remember the form of a circle. The circle is going to be the most common one that is going to show up on your standardized college entrance exam. So remember, the standard form of a circle is when you find its center. So we have here the quantity x minus h squared plus the quantity y minus k squared equals the radius squared, where we know the center is hk, and r obviously r is equal to the length of the radius. A quick example of this would be like x plus 2 squared plus y squared equals, I don't know, 25. Your center would be -2, 0, and your radius, which is the square root of 25, would be 5. So that's just a quick, easy example of this. Your homework tonight is going to be a worksheet that's very similar to this review. So use these notes to help you. They will guide you as you go. So the very first thing here, it says identify the center and the radius of the circle, then graph. So please just ignore that extra one. All right, it's the quantity x plus 2 squared plus the quantity y minus 1 squared equals 9. It's already in standard form of an equation of a circle, so we can readily pull out the center. And remember, our center, h and k, come out opposite of what you see inside the parentheses. And so that's going to be a -2, 1. So I'm going to go here to -2, 1, and then we have to find our radius. Remember, radius squared is equal to 9, so the radius is the square root of 9, so it's 3. So r is going to equal 3, so it's a length. So then you go to your center, and here's our needed information, and you go from the center spot and you go 3 to the right, 3 to the left, up 3, down 3, and then you connect it as much as, well, my circle's not looking real good. Those of you who can do the draw things work much better. And that would be the center of that circle. Now, the big takeaway that you need to take from these, my friends, is the fact of using the completing the square. Now, when you're working on number 2, it says write the equation of the circle in standard form, and it says identify its radius, center, and graph it. With this, the thing you need to remember is I don't want any value in front of my x squared and my y squared. So I look at this and I see a 2x squared plus 2y squared plus 8x plus 4y minus 8. We have to divide everything by 2 first. So I'm going to divide by 2 on both sides. So when we get that, we really have x squared plus y squared plus 4x plus 2y minus 4. And that equals 0. Then we take the time to now group our x and y's together and then move the constant to the right. So that way we can start doing completing the square. Well, we know that x squared plus 4x goes together. Remember, we're going to go a plus blank there because we know we're going to complete the square with it. You don't have to do completing the square with it if you only have the squared term. Just remember that. And then we have plus the quantity y squared plus 2y plus blank equals 4 plus blank plus blank. So we moved the constant over to the other side. Make sure you change that signs, and then you remind yourselves to add both sides. So then we do the completing the square process. So let's look at the x squared plus 4x. You take your 4 and you divide it by 2. That gives you a positive 2, you square, it's a positive 4. So I have to add a positive 4 to both sides. And then on the next one, we have a y squared plus 2y. So we take 2 and divide by 2, which is 1. And remember, 1 squared is just 1. And we add 1 to both sides. Then we're ready to write it in our last step, standard form. What goes in the parentheses, the first set? Well, we have the x squared plus 4x plus 4. That factors into a binomial of x plus 2 quantity squared. Where did that plus 2 come from? That's done by dividing the positive 4 by 2. Then in our other parentheses, we are going to have a y plus 1 squared, and 4 plus 4 plus 1 is equal to 9. So here is the standard form of the equation, but now we need to pull out its center and also its radius before we graph. The center for this circle is at -2, -1, so -2, -1, and the radius is the square root of 9, which gives us 3. I don't even like how that's written. Awesome. Okay. So then we have to graph it. So we go over to -2, -1 for the center, and then we do our radius, and we got to go to the right 3, to the left 3, up 3, down 3, and then you just, oops, down 3. No, my last one does not want to get to where it belongs. And that would be your circle. Okay, now let's go and let's review the different forms of a parabola. And remember, this one was the hardest for most of you. You guys do a great job with it. But remember, we actually have 2 forms. We have the form for parabola that either when the parabola opens up or opens down. And that's the following. Y equals 1 over 4c times the quantity x minus h squared plus k. Remember, your vertex of the parabola is always hk. C is used to solve for the focus of the parabola. Just remember, if your C is positive, it will open up, okay? And if C is negative, your parabola will open down. So basically, if this value is positive, it opens up. If it is negative, your parabola will open down. Then the next form that we have is when we open to the right or we open to the left. And that's the following form. Y equals 1 over 4c. Oops, excuse me, I just did that one wrong. X equals 1 over 4c times the quantity y minus k squared plus h. Now, be very careful with this form. Notice what switched spots. So you have to be very careful. With this, and someone goes, well, how do I know which form to use? Remember, whatever term is being squared, that's the one that goes on the right. So if y is being squared, you know you open left, right. If x is being squared, you know you're going to open up, down. Just remember with you working with this, if I have a positive C, I'm going to be going to the right. If I have a negative C, I will be opening to the left. So be very careful when you are working with these. Okay, my friends, so let's practice this. And the key with working with parabolas is being able to know where the vertex is and actually being able to open it in the right direction, because once you open it in the right direction, you will be able to find your focus and stuff more readily. Okay, so looking at this first one, we are in the form where it's x equals, which means it's opening to the left or to the right. So with this one, let's rewrite our form down. This is when we get x is equal to 1 over 4c times the quantity y minus k squared plus h. So the nice thing is this is exactly already taken care of. We do not have to use completing a square in order to do so. So first thing you're going to do is pull out your vertex, okay? So the vertex of this one, this would be k, h would be here. Well, there is no h, so that means it's 0. It's going to be at 0, negative 2. So I'm over here at 0, negative 2. I about tried to graph it wrong. That's all I need, right, guys? I already make enough mistakes for you guys. So 0, negative 2. Then I need to know which way this is opening. Well, if x is first, we are going to be opening to the right or to the left. This is negative, which means I'm opening to the left. So that means I'm going like this. As a result, you should be able to solve for your foci and directrix now, because we know which direction we're going. We are going to be moving to the left or to the right in order to get those, okay? To do that, you must know C. So what do we have here? Well, we know 1 over 4C is equal to a negative 1/4. So if I cross multiply, C is going to equal a negative 1, okay? Which means I'm going to the left of my vertex. So let's use red here, which means I'm going 1 to the left, and this would be my new focus. So our focus moved horizontally, so it's negative 1, negative 2. The directrix goes in the exact opposite direction. So it goes this way, a value of 1. And then we get a vertical line. So my directrix is the line x is equal to 1. So those are all the values you need to have, and a rough drawing of the graph. Remember, I care if you graph more accurately with transformations than I actually do when you're working with it this way. All right, now let's do the hardest problem. Okay, what happens, my friends, when I have a problem like the following, where I get y equals 2x squared plus 8x plus 12? Well, with this one is you've got to be really good at realizing how to complete the square and how to make it look correctly. This is going to be my x squared. So I know this is already going up or down. But let's go ahead and let's use the process for this. First things first is you're going to want to move the constant over to the y. So I'm going to go here and get y minus 12 is equal to 2x squared plus 8x. Now again, remember, I never want to do completing the square with anything but a 1 in front of my squared terms. So for my very next step, I'm going to go y minus 12 plus blank equals 2 times quantity x squared plus 4x, because I'm factoring out a 2, plus blank. Now, I'm going to do my completing the square. So I look here and I'm like, okay, I'm dividing by 2, which is 2, and I square it, which is 4. And then I go 2 times 4, which is 8, which means I'm actually adding 8 to the other side. And then I work on changing into my form here. So I get y minus 4 is equal to 2 times the quantity x plus 2 squared. And all I have to do is add 4 to the other side. So what do we get here? We get y is equal to 2 times the quantity x plus 2 squared plus 4. So here is standard form. My friend, it's based off of the form 1 over 4c times quantity x minus h squared plus k. So I know I should be able to pull out my vertex, correct? Now here I had to be very careful and pull them out correctly. Same here. This is going to be the h, remember, this is going to be the k. So my vertex is going to be at negative 2, 4. So negative 2, 4. Now, the thing I also notice, it's positive with the 2 out front right here. So that means I know I am opening, oh, this is weird, that's totally writing down there. It's opening up, just like that, okay? So now I have to find my C, which is the hardest part. But remember, it's pretty simple. We just go 1 over 4c is equal to 2. We just cross multiply. So I get 1 is equal to 8c. C is equal to 1/8. It's positive. Now, that means my focus is going to be this direction. It's right above the vertex. It goes along the axis of symmetry. So I'm actually adding on to my y value. So my focus is going to be a -2, 4 1/8. My directrix goes in the opposite direction. It's going to be down here, which means I'm going to subtract it from 4, and that's going to give me 3 7/8, my friends. So directrix is going to be a y value. Y equals 3 7/8. So here's all of our values. Okay, good with this. Let's move on. All right, let's talk about the different forms of an ellipse. Now, ellipse is that stretched out circle that we're talking about. And with an ellipse, it has two different forms. We have the form for when the long way, the major axis stretches horizontally, and that's the following form. And that's when we get x minus h squared over a squared plus y minus k squared over b squared is equal to 1. Remember, a squared equals largest every single time. Don't forget that. Well, and we know that our center is still going to be h and k, and then we're going to use a helps us figure the length and the vertices. So the length of our major axis and the vertices that we're going to be using. And then we have b squared helps us find the minor axis and helps us find our co-vertices. Even though I don't ask you to find the co-vertices, you just need it in order to graph. Then we have our other form. When our ellipse goes the long way up and down, so its major axis is vertical, it's going to be the following. X minus h squared over b squared plus the quantity y minus k squared over a squared is equal to 1. And remember, we use c to find focus. C, and to do this, we get c squared is equal to a squared minus b squared. So these are the two forms that we're going to work with. All right, I want to crank through these so that way you can start working on your homework. Homework short, 6 problems just like this. Boom, you're done. So let's do these together. Guys, and also remember, you can always pause me, go get a drink of water, then come back. You can speed me up by putting me on time and a half if you're able to keep up and go from there. And the nice thing is you can also pause me. All right, let's look at the first one. It says graph the ellipse and then identify the center, vertices, and foci of the ellipse. Now, scholars, here's the coolest thing. The focus isn't needed to graph, but this is the form where a squared is under the x, which means I am stretching horizontally. Okay, now we should be able to figure out our center, so that will help us graph it real quick. Our center is at -3, +1. Remember, that's a minus h, and this is a y minus k, so it helps us pull it out. So with our two forms. So I go over here to a -3, 1. Then I know this is a horizontal stretch, which means I'm going to go a distance from the center to the right and a negative distance to the left. Okay, so a we have to find. So a squared is equal to 16. So a is going to equal 4. So I got to go 4 to the right. And I got to go 4 to the left. So there's a vertex and a vertex. Now I have to find what the vertices are. And the vertices are always the ends of the major axis. And so those we can write down right now. We have the fact it is at 1, 1. And we made it to -7, 1. All right. Now, I need to still find, let's just actually finish graphing first, okay? To graph, you only ever need your minor axis as well. So b squared is 4, so we know b would end up equaling 2. All you have to do to find the next part are your co-vertices, which is going to be b distance away, and then just connect your co-vertices with your vertices, and you have your ellipse. But what is B really helpful for besides that? That also helps you be able to find your foci. And we're going to use the formula. C squared equals A squared minus B squared. So C squared A squared is 16, B squared is 4, so C squared is 12. We're going to take the square root of both sides here. C is going to be 2 root 3. Now, which way is that moving? Well, it moves on the same thing as your major axis. So I got to go C this direction and opposite C the other direction to get my foci. Well, that means we're moving horizontally. So you go back to your center and we just take our -3 and we add or subtract 2 root 3 to it. Put 1 and we have everything that we needed. Now guys, this is just important for you to know because this is a lot on standardized, not as much as standardized tests, being able to graph, but you'll pull out the key information. All right, we're almost done with notes. Oh. Okay, so with this one, we have to find the standard form of the ellipse, and then I'm asking you to graph it. When I ask you to graph, I could care less about what your foci is. Okay, and honestly, I'm not going to ask you formally to tell me your vertices. You're just going to have to use A and B to make the graph. So let's start on this one. First thing we're going to do is we're going to group our variables together and move our constant over. So with this, we have 9x squared minus 36x plus 4y squared plus 24y is equal to a -36. Then, my friends, we're going to now factor out our greatest common factors for our variables so we can do completing the square. So I got 9 comes out of the x squared and the 36x. So really when I say greatest common factor, I should say that differently. You need to take out or factor out the value in front of your squared term. So we go x squared minus 4x plus blank plus, take out the quantity 4 times the quantity y squared plus 6y plus blank equals a -36 plus blank plus blank. So we can have both of those in there. Okay, now let's do the completing the square. Here I'm going to divide by 2, which gives me -2, and we square it. That's 4. But what do I actually add to the other side? Well, I have to distribute the 9 with it. So 9 times 4, that is going to be a +36. Then we go here to the 6, divide that by 2, and get 3. 3 squared is 9. But I'm going to take the 4, I'm going to multiply it to the 9, so I really am adding equal parts on both sides, and that's also 36. So when we are now starting to write this with binomials being squared, I'm going to get 9 times quantity x minus 2 squared plus 4 times quantity y plus 3 squared equals, on the right, when I add all 3 of those numbers together, 36. But remember, standard form for an ellipse is equal to 1. So that means I have to divide everything by 36. So I get the quantity x minus 2 squared all over 4 plus the quantity y plus 3 squared all over 9 is equal to 1. Now, here's the cool part. You've got the standard form of the equation of the ellipse. Which way is this ellipse stretching? Is it stretching horizontally or is it stretching vertically? Well, remember, a squared is always the largest number, and a squared, that's supposed to be a 9, that's supposed to be readable. There we go, 9. I know a squared is equal to 9, and it's underneath the y, which means I'm now stretching my ellipse vertically. So what key pieces of information do I need? Well, I need to know the center. So I pull that out and I get 2, -3. So I got 2 and I go down here to -3. Then I'm going to use A, and A this time is going to equal 3. And I'm going to go up 3 and down 3 to get my vertices. So we go 1, 2, 3. That's so weird how it does that. And then 1, 2, 3. Guys, that's a distance that stretches vertically. I'm going to use b squared, which is 4, to get me b is equal to 2. That gives me half the length. The 2 is half the length of the minor axis. And that means I'm going to go right to left 2. And then I can draw my final ellipse by connecting my vertices. Well, I'm not sure why this is doing weird stuff. the ellipse just like the following. Remember, this value, A, distance goes up or down. So remember, that was your major axis, okay? Length, and then you go a direction of B from your center, and that gave us elongated ellipse. Okay, I hope this helps you. Make sure you know how to do completing the square. I'm available till 4 o'clock to answer your questions, and if you need to, call me at night. If I'm not available, I'm not available, but if I am, I will be more than happy to answer your questions. Have a great day, scholars.